Commander Zektar stood on the observation deck of the massive space station. His 6 eyes moved across the viewing screen as he watched the human ship approach. The vessel looked strange to him. It was smaller than most ships that came to the Galactic Coalition's main hub. Its metal hull was smooth and simple. No spikes or armor plating like the Kresh battlecruisers. No energy crackling across its surface like Voltarian warships. Just plain metal and glass. Interesting design, said his aide, Dr. Velanash. The scientist's tentacles moved over his datapad as he recorded notes. Very basic construction. Minimal defensive systems visible from external scans. Zektar nodded. His species, the hegemony, had been the Coalition's military leaders for over 300 years. They had thick, armored skin that could stop most energy weapons. Their claws could cut through steel. Their muscles were 3 times stronger than most other species. When Zektar looked at these humans, he saw soft, pink skin and small bodies. What do we know about their combat abilities? Zektar asked. Dr. Velanash's tentacles twitched as he read from his device. Very limited, Commander. They appear to be pack hunters on their home world. But their prey was much smaller than them. Mostly 4-legged creatures. No evidence of fighting large predators or other intelligent species until recently. The human ship docked with a soft clang that echoed through the station. Zektar watched through the security cameras as the airlock opened. 3 humans stepped out. They were even smaller than he expected. The tallest one barely reached the chest height of a normal Kresh warrior. Their skin looked thin and easy to damage. No natural weapons were visible. No claws, fangs, or bioelectric organs. They look fragile, said Dr. Velanash. Our preliminary biological scans show they have only 2 eyes. Their bones are made of calcium phosphate, which is much weaker than our metallic bone structure. Their muscles appear to be simple protein fibers. The lead human was a female with dark hair pulled back in a tight bundle. She wore a simple blue uniform with small metal badges. Her name was Sarah Chun, according to the diplomatic files. She walked with confidence, but Zektar noticed she had no visible weapons. Most species came to first contact meetings with at least ceremonial armaments. The Voltarians wore their shock gauntlets. The Mindari brought their psi blades. These humans carried nothing but small electronic devices. Zektar and his team made their way to the diplomatic meeting room. It was a large space with a round table that could accommodate many different body types. The humans were already seated when they arrived. Sarah Chun stood and extended her hand toward Zektar. This was apparently some kind of greeting ritual. Zektar carefully took her hand in one of his clawed appendages. He was surprised by the firmness of her grip, but he could feel how delicate her bones were underneath the skin. One squeeze from his full strength would crush every bone in her hand. "Welcome to the Galactic Coalition, Ambassador Chen," Zektar said. "We are honored to meet representatives of Earth." Sarah smiled. It was a strange expression that showed her small, flat teeth. Nothing like the intimidating fangs of predator species. "Thank you, Commander Zektar. Earth is excited to join the galactic community." As they sat down, Zektar activated his military scanner. It was a small device that analyzed the combat potential of different species. The results for the humans were not impressive. Physical strength was rated as below average. Natural armor was listed as none. Biological weapons showed not present. Speed and agility came back as standard baseline. Dr. Velanash was taking his own readings. His scientific scanner showed similar results. The humans had no enhanced healing abilities. Their lifespans were short compared to most coalition species. Their brain activity was interesting, but showed no signs of telepathic abilities or enhanced processing speed. "Your species is quite unique," Dr. Velanash said to Sarah. We've never encountered beings quite like you. Most species that achieve spaceflight have significant physical advantages over their planet's other life forms. Sarah nodded. Humans are adaptable. We use tools and work together to overcome challenges. Zektar made notes on his datapad. Tool use was common among intelligent species. Cooperation was also normal. Nothing the humans displayed seemed particularly special or threatening. In fact, they seemed like they would need protection from the more dangerous species in the galaxy. The meeting continued for several hours. They discussed trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and technology sharing. Sarah was calm and professional throughout the entire process. She never showed anger or aggression, even when negotiations became difficult. When Zektar pushed for better terms for the coalition, she simply smiled and offered reasonable compromises. Your species seems very peaceful, Zektar observed. How do you handle conflicts on your homeworld? We prefer to talk through problems, Sarah replied. But we can defend ourselves when necessary. Dr. Velanash looked at his scanner readings again. Our analysis suggests your people would be classified as trade class, non-combatant status. This means you would be under coalition military protection during any conflicts. Sarah's smile remained, but something flickered in her eyes for just a moment. That's very kind of you to offer protection. Though I think you might be surprised by human capabilities if we're ever tested. Zektar dismissed this as typical new species bravado. Every race liked to think they were tougher than they appeared. The biological evidence was clear. Humans were weak, slow, and had no natural weapons. They would need significant protection in the dangerous galaxy they had just entered. After the humans left, Zektar met with his military advisors. The consensus was unanimous. Humans pose no military threat to anyone. They might be useful as traders or scientists, but they would never be warriors. Their classification was set as protected species, and their military threat level was marked as minimal. Dr. Velanash submitted his report to the Coalition Science Council. Species exhibits high intelligence and social cooperation, he wrote. Physical capabilities extremely limited. Recommend immediate protective status to ensure survival in galactic community. Neither of them noticed the small security recording that showed Sarah Chun's reaction when they mentioned humans being non-combatant. Her smile had never wavered, but her hands had formed tight fists for exactly 3 seconds before relaxing again. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity, but not today. 3 weeks after first contact, a mixed-species trade convoy was traveling through the Kepler sector. The human diplomatic ship was part of the group, along with vessels from 5 other coalition species. Commander Zektar was aboard his military escort ship, the Iron Talon. Making sure everything stayed peaceful. The convoy carried valuable technology samples between Earth and the Coalition's central trading post. It was supposed to be a routine journey through safe space. Pirates rarely attacked this close to Coalition patrol routes. Marcus Rodriguez was the chief of security on the human ship. He was a large man with dark skin and gray hair. Unlike Ambassador Chun, he looked like he might actually know how to fight. But Zektar's scanners still showed the same results. No natural armor. No biological weapons. Limited physical strength compared to real warriors. Marcus spent most of his time checking the human ship's simple defense systems. The humans have basic energy shields and a few plasma cannons. Nothing impressive compared to the firepower on Coalition. Military vessels. The attack came without warning. Red alerts blared across all ships as 12 pirate vessels dropped out of hyperspace around the convoy. They were Ravager-class ships, fast and heavily armed. The pirates of the Outer Rim were known for taking no prisoners. All civilian ships, Prepare for immediate evacuation procedures. Zektar, broadcast over the communication system. Military escorts will provide covering fire for your escape. This was standard coalition protocol. When faced with superior numbers, civilians retreated while military forces held off the attackers. It was logical, and it saved countless lives over the centuries. The other species in the convoy began their evacuation procedures. Voltarian ships charged their emergency jump drives. Crash vessels activated their heavy armor plating. Mindara ships linked their telepathic networks for coordinated retreat. But the human ship did something different. Iron Talon, this is Chief Rodriguez, came the voice over the communication channel. Human vessel is not retreating. We're moving to attack position. Zektar's 6 eyes widened in disbelief. Negative, human vessel. You are classified as non-combatant. Begin evacuation immediately. Sorry, Commander, Marcus replied. Can't do that. We've got friends here who need help. The human ship broke formation and accelerated toward the nearest pirate vessel. It was suicide. The pirates had better armor, stronger weapons, and more experience. But Marcus seemed to have lost his mind. The first exchange of fire damaged the human ship's hull in 3 places. Atmosphere vented from the lower deck. Normal procedure would be to fall back and seal the breaches. Instead, Marcus did something that made no sense. He fired his ship's emergency thrusters and rammed the pirate vessel. Both ships spun wildly through space, metal grinding against metal. The pirate ship's weapons couldn't target the human vessel at such close range. But the collision had damaged both ships badly. Human vessel, report status, Zektar called. We've got 5 crew members injured, Marcus replied. His voice sounded strained but not panicked. Hull breaches on 2 decks. Main power at 60%. Continuing attack. Continuing attack? Zektar couldn't believe what he was hearing. Any sane commander would retreat after taking that much damage. The human ship was barely functional, but Marcus wasn't done. He used the damaged ship's remaining weapons to target the pirate vessel's engine core. His shooting was precise and calm, even though his ship was falling apart around him. The pirate ship exploded in a bright flash of light. The other pirates turned their attention to the human ship. Energy blasts pounded against its failing shields. The hull cracked and sparked. More atmosphere leaked into space. Zek single quotes. Tar expected Marcus to finally call for help or retreat. Instead, he heard something over the communication channel that chilled his blood. Marcus was laughing. Now it's getting interesting, the human said. The damaged human ship spun around and attacked another pirate vessel. This time, Marcus used a tactic that no military database had on file. He fired all his remaining weapons at once, then shut down his ship's power completely. To the pirates, it looked like the human vessel had been destroyed. When the pirate ship moved closer to check for survivors, the human ship suddenly powered up again. Marcus had been waiting in the dark, bleeding and injured, for the perfect moment to strike. His close-range attack crippled the second pirate ship. How is he still fighting? Dr. Velanash whispered from the observation deck. His biological signs show severe trauma. His ship is barely holding together. Zektar watched his scanners in amazement. Marcus had multiple injuries that would force most species to stop fighting. But his combat effectiveness was actually increasing. The more damage he took, the more creative his attacks became. The human used broken pieces of his own ship as projectiles. He turned damaged systems into improvised weapons. When his main weapons failed, he jury-rigged explosives from medical supplies and ship components. It was like watching someone fight with controlled insanity. The battle lasted another 20 minutes. By the end, Marcus had destroyed or disabled 6 pirate ships. His own vessel was a floating wreck, held together by emergency patches and determination. When Zektar's forces finally drove off the remaining pirates, they found Marcus still at his post, bleeding from several wounds, but alert and ready to continue fighting. "Medical team to the human vessel immediately," Zektar ordered. When the coalition medics boarded the human ship, they found something disturbing. The 5 injured crew members Marcus had mentioned were still at their stations, helping with repairs and weapons control. They were functioning normally, despite having injuries that would incapacitate most species. One human female had a broken arm, but was still operating the navigation system. Another male had severe burns from an electrical fire, but continued monitoring the engines. They acted like pain was just another problem to work around. "Don't understand it," the lead medic reported to Zektar. "These humans should be in shock. They should be unconscious from trauma. Instead, they're asking when they can return to duty." Zektar visited Marcus in the medical bay after the battle. The human was sitting up in bed, his injuries bandaged, reading reports on ship damage. "Why didn't you retreat?" Zektar asked. "Your ship was outgunned. Your crew was injured. Standard protocol demanded evacuation." Marcus looked up from his datapad. "Commander, I've got a question for you. When those pirates showed up, what was your first thought?" Zektar considered the question. "Preserve the convoy. Minimize casualties. Execute tactical withdrawal." Marcus nodded. "That's good thinking for keeping people alive. But see, humans think a little differently. When I saw those pirates threatening my friends, my first thought was simpler." "What was it?" Marcus smiled, but it wasn't the same friendly expression Sarah Chun had used during negotiations. This smile was cold and dangerous. "I thought, how many of these bastards can I kill before they kill me?" Zektar left the medical bay with a disturbing realization. Maybe humans weren't as harmless as their scan suggested. Word about the pirate attack spread quickly through coalition military channels. Commander Zektar received dozens of reports asking the same question. How had a single human ship defeated 6 pirate vessels? Some officers suggested it was luck. Others thought the pirates had malfunctioned weapons. But Dr. Velenash had a different theory. He wanted to study human combat behavior under controlled conditions. "Commander," the scientist said as they met in Zektar's office, "I believe we need to understand these humans better. Their actions during the pirate attack were completely outside normal parameters." Zektar agreed. "What do you suggest?" "A training exercise. We tell them it's to help them integrate with coalition forces. But really, we test their psychological responses to different combat scenarios." 2 weeks later, a squad of human soldiers arrived at the coalition's training facility on Kepler Station. They were led by Sergeant Lisa Park, a small woman with short blonde hair and calm blue eyes. Like all humans, she looked fragile compared to the alien warriors around her. The training facility was designed to test every aspect of military capability. It had holographic environments that could simulate any battlefield. Pain simulators that felt real but caused no actual damage. Psychological pressure scenarios that broke most new recruits within hours. Zektar and Dr. Velenash watched from the observation room as the human squad prepared for their first test. There were 8 humans total, 4 males and 4 females. Their equipment was basic compared to coalition standards. Simple projectile weapons instead of energy blasters. Basic armor that looked like it wouldn't stop a serious attack. Test 1 announced the facility's computer system. Urban combat scenario. Objective: secure the building and eliminate all hostile targets. Difficulty: standard. The holographic environment activated around the humans. They were now standing in a war-torn city with enemies hiding in every building. Most new soldiers took careful, defensive positions and moved slowly through the area. The humans did something different. They split into 2 teams and attacked from opposite directions at the same time. When enemies appeared, they didn't take cover and wait. They moved forward, using aggressive tactics that put them in more danger, but ended fights quickly. Sergeant Park led her team through a building full of simulated enemies. When one of her soldiers got killed by the simulation, she didn't slow down or change her strategy. She just kept moving forward, compensating for the lost team member by taking on more risk herself. Interesting, Dr. Velanash noted. They don't seem affected by casualties the way other species are. The humans completed the first test faster than any previous species. They lost 3 team members, but achieved all objectives in record time. Test 2, the computer announced. Defensive scenario. Hold position against overwhelming odds. Difficulty, extreme. This test was designed to break most soldiers. The simulation created an endless wave of enemies attacking a small defensive position. The point was to see how long different species could maintain organized resistance before panic set in. Most species lasted between 10 and 30 minutes before requesting evacuation or surrender protocols. Humans lasted 4 hours, but that wasn't the strangest part. As the simulation continued and more of their team got killed, the remaining humans became more effective, not less. Sergeant Park started using tactics that weren't in any military manual. She turned broken equipment into weapons. She used the bodies of fallen teammates as cover while setting up ambushes. When only 2 humans remained alive in the simulation, Dr. Velanash expected them to finally break. Instead, they began fighting with intensity that disturbed the watching aliens. They moved faster, shot more accurately, and took risks that should have gotten them killed immediately. Computer, end simulation, Zektar ordered. He was uncomfortable with what he was seeing, but Commander, Dr. Velanash protested. We haven't reached failure parameters yet. End it now. The holographic environment shut down. Sergeant Park and her surviving teammates stood up from their defensive positions, breathing hard but alert. They looked disappointed that the test was over. How do you feel about losing most of your team? Dr. Velanash asked Park during the debriefing. She looked confused by the question. We didn't lose them, sir. We avenged them. That answer sent a cold feeling down Zektar's spine. Most species fought to survive. These humans seemed to fight for revenge. The third test was the most disturbing. It was designed to measure psychological breaking points. The simulation created a scenario where soldiers had to choose between saving civilians or completing a military objective. Most species showed stress, confusion, and eventual breakdown when forced to make impossible choices. The humans approached it differently. When the simulation forced them to choose between saving hostages and stopping an enemy weapon, Sergeant Park split her remaining team again. Half went to save the civilians. Half went after the weapon. When she was told this violated orders and she had to choose only one objective, her response shocked everyone. Respectfully, sir, the orders are wrong, she said calmly. We can do both. And somehow, they did. The humans ignored the simulation's built-in limitations and found solutions that the programmers hadn't considered. When told they didn't have enough ammunition, they made more from captured enemy supplies. When told they didn't have time to reach both objectives, they moved faster than the simulation thought was possible. It was like watching people who simply refused to accept that something was impossible. After 6 hours of testing, Dr. Velanash was reviewing data that made no sense. The humans had passed every test, but not in any way the tests were designed to measure. They didn't follow normal military psychology. They didn't respond to stress, casualties, or impossible odds the way other species did. What are they? He whispered to Zektar. The commander was studying footage of Sergeant Park during the final test. When her last teammate had been killed, she had done something unprecedented. Instead of calling for support or retreating, she had smiled. actually smiled. Then she had eliminated the remaining 12 enemies by herself, using tactics so unconventional they seemed like insanity. But they had worked. That night, Zektar couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about that smile. It reminded him of Marcus Rodriguez laughing during the pirate attack. These humans weren't just fearless. They enjoyed fighting when things got hopeless. He sent a priority message to Coalition High Command. Request immediate review of human species classification. Previous assessment may be dangerously inaccurate. In her quarters, Sergeant Park was writing her own report to send back to Earth. Training went well, she wrote. Coalition military tests are designed around species that give up when things get bad. Recommend we don't tell them about our actual capabilities until necessary. They seem nervous about us already. She paused, thinking about how the alien observers had looked at her during the tests. Like they were watching something they didn't understand. She wasn't wrong. Dr. Velanash couldn't stop thinking about the human test results. For 3 days, he had been reviewing the data from every angle. Nothing made sense according to normal military psychology. He decided to dig deeper into human evolutionary history. The Coalition had detailed biological records of every member species, going back millions of years. Maybe the answers were in humanity's past. Commander, Zektar found him in the research lab at 0300 hours. Surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth's prehistoric landscapes. Doctor, you should be resting, Zektar said. I can't, Dr. Velanash replied, his tentacles moving frantically over multiple data screens. Commander, look at this. I've been studying how humans evolved, and I think I know why they fight the way they do. The main display showed a group of early humans on the African savanna. They were chasing a large four-legged animal across an endless grassland. Most predator species evolved specific advantages, Dr. Velanash explained. The Kresh developed armor and claws. Voltarians evolved bioelectric attacks. Mandari gained telepathic coordination. But humans evolved something different. The display changed to show the same hunt from a different angle. The humans weren't faster than their prey. They weren't stronger. They couldn't kill it with claws or fangs. But they kept following it, hour after hour, day after day. They're persistent predators, Dr. Velanash whispered. They evolved to literally chase their prey to death. Zektar studied the display with growing unease. What does that mean? It means humans didn't evolve to fight and win quickly. They evolved to never give up, ever. Look at the data. Early humans would chase animals for days across hundreds of kilometers. They would follow their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion and died. They would track wounded animals for weeks until they found them. The display showed more scenes from human prehistory. Groups of early humans following massive predators that should have been able to kill them easily. But the humans never stopped following. They used tools, worked together, and simply refused to give up until their target was dead. This explains their behavior during our tests, Dr. Velanash continued. When other species face overwhelming odds, their instinct is to retreat and survive. But humans evolved from creatures that specialized in overwhelming their prey through psychological warfare. Zektar felt a chill run through his body. Psychological warfare? Think about it from the prey's perspective, Commander. Imagine being hunted by something that never stops coming. Something that follows you day and night, getting closer every time you rest. Something that doesn't give up when you fight back or run away. Eventually, the prey would be so exhausted and terrified that it would just lie down and wait to die. The displays changed to show human civilization throughout history. Dr. Velanash had compiled battle records from every human culture he could find in Earth's databases. Look at this, Commander. Every human civilization, completely independent of each other, developed the same warrior ideologies. They all praised fighting against impossible odds. They all had stories about heroes who refused to surrender even when defeat was certain. The screen showed ancient Greek soldiers at a narrow mountain pass, refusing to retreat even when facing an army 50 times larger. It showed human warriors in a city surrounded by enemies, fighting street by street until the last man was dead. It showed pilots in flying machines, ramming enemy ships when they ran out of ammunition. The Battle of Thermopylae, Dr. Velanash read from his notes. 300 Spartan warriors held off 30,000 enemy soldiers until every Spartan was dead. They could have retreated. They chose to fight instead. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. A few hundred humans with basic weapons fought the entire German military for over a month. They knew they couldn't win. They fought anyway. The Battle of Rorke's Drift. 150 British soldiers fought 4,000 Zulu warriors for 2 days. They were completely surrounded with no hope of escape. They kept fighting. Zektar watched the historical footage in horror. Every human culture had similar stories. Warriors who fought until they died rather than surrender. Soldiers who became more dangerous as their situations became more hopeless. Battles where humans chose certain death over retreat. But Dr. Zektar said slowly, "These aren't isolated incidents. You're showing me patterns from across their entire species." Exactly. Dr. Velanash's excitement was mixed with fear. It's not learned behavior, Commander. It's genetic programming. Humans evolved from persistence predators. Their brains are wired to never give up once they identify a target. The display changed again, showing brain scans of humans during combat situations. Dr. Velanash pointed to the highlighted areas. Look at their neural activity during stress. When most species face overwhelming odds, their brains trigger retreat responses. Fear, panic, self-preservation instincts. But humans have a different response. Stress and danger actually increase activity in their aggression centers. Are you saying they become more dangerous when they're losing? That's exactly what I'm saying. It's called berserker fury in their historical records. The closer humans get to death, the less they care about their own survival. All their mental resources focus on one goal, killing whatever they see as a threat. Zektar sat down heavily in his chair. The implications were staggering. The Coalition had welcomed a species of natural-born killers into the galactic community. Creatures whose evolution had shaped them into perfect psychological weapons. Doctor, if this is true, why are humans so peaceful most of the time? Ambassador Chan was completely calm during negotiations. Dr. Velanash adjusted his display to show human sociological data. Because they evolved as pack hunters, Commander. Humans are only peaceful with creatures they see as part of their pack. But once they identify something as prey or a threat to their pack. He paused, letting the implications sink in. Well, we've seen what happens then. The two aliens spent the rest of the night reviewing more human history. They found records of wars that lasted decades, with humans continuing to fight long after victory became impossible. They found stories of individual humans who had killed dozens of enemies single-handedly when their families were threatened. They found evidence of human soldiers who had fought on for days after taking wounds that would instantly kill most other species. Commander, Dr. Velanash said as the station's morning cycle began, I think we need to consider something disturbing. What if the humans haven't been showing us their real military capabilities? Zektar looked at footage of Sergeant Park smiling during the combat test. That expression finally made sense. It wasn't confidence or bravery. It was the smile of a predator that had finally found worthy prey. Send a message to the Coalition Science Council, Zektar ordered. Priority 1 classification. The human species needs immediate reclassification. They are not non-combatants. They may be the most dangerous military force in known space. Dr. Velanash prepared the report, but he had one more disturbing thought. Commander, there's something else. Humans have been spacefaring for less than a century, but they've already developed weapons that can destroy entire planets. What kind of species creates that level of destructive power so quickly after leaving their home world? Zektar didn't answer. He was looking at a new piece of data that had just appeared on his screen. Earth's governments had just submitted a formal application to join the Coalition's military defense force. The galaxy was about to get very interesting. The emergency alarm echoed through Coalition High Command at 0347 hours. Commander Zektar rushed to the command center, where dozens of officers were staring at displays filled with red warning signals. "Report," Zektar commanded. Admiral Keth Mori, a massive Kresh warrior, turned from the main screen. His voice was strained with fear. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected them. The harvesters have returned." Zektar felt his blood freeze. Every species in the Coalition knew the stories. 3 million years ago, an ancient machine intelligence had swept across the galaxy. They called themselves the Harvesters. They consumed entire star systems, turning planets into raw materials for their ever-expanding fleets. The Coalition's ancestors had survived by hiding in the far edges of space until the Harvesters vanished into dark space. Everyone hoped they were gone forever. "How many ships?" Zektar asked. "Sensor readings indicate approximately 50,000 vessels approaching from the galactic core. Estimated arrival in Coalition space, 72 hours. The command center erupted in control panic. Officers began implementing Protocol 7, full evacuation of all Coalition worlds. The plan was simple: run, hide, and hope the machines would leave again after consuming what they wanted. "Sir," a communications officer called out, "Admiral Chun of the human fleet is requesting permission to speak with you." Admiral Sarah Chun. Ambassador Chun's daughter had followed her mother into public service, but chosen the military instead of diplomacy. After Dr. Velanash's report about human psychology, the Coalition had quietly allowed humans to form their own military unit. It seemed safer than integrating them with other species. Zektar activated the communication channel. Admiral Chun appeared on the main screen. She looked exactly like her mother, calm, professional, and completely unaware of how dangerous she truly was. "Commander Zektar," she said, "I've reviewed the Harvester threat assessment. My fleet requests permission to remain in Coalition space. Admiral, Protocol 7 requires immediate evacuation of all civilian and military assets. Your species will be relocated to the safe zones beyond the rim." Admiral Chun smiled. It was the same friendly expression her mother had used during those first diplomatic meetings. But now Zektar knew what that smile really meant. "With respect, Commander, my people won't be evacuating." "Admiral, you don't understand. The Harvesters destroyed civilizations that were far more advanced than humanity. Your species has been spacefaring for less than a century. This is not a battle you can win." "Maybe not," Admiral Chun replied, "but it's a battle we can fight." Across the galaxy, Coalition species began their retreats. Massive evacuation fleets carried billions of civilians toward the dark spaces between galaxies. Ancient bunkers built by their ancestors were reopened and stocked with supplies for centuries-long hiding. Only the humans stayed. Zektar watched from the command ship as human fleets moved into defensive positions around key Coalition worlds. It was suicide. The humans had perhaps 2,000 ships. The Harvesters had 50,000, each one larger and more advanced than anything in Coalition space. But the humans weren't just staying to fight. They were preparing for war. Human engineers worked around the clock, modifying their ships with weapons that violated every military convention. They installed self-destruct charges that could destroy entire fleets. They loaded their vessels with nuclear weapons powerful enough to crack planets. They turned merchant ships into missile platforms and space stations into orbital fortresses. Dr. Velenesh monitored their preparations with growing horror. Commander, they're not planning to win this battle. They're planning to make the harvesters pay for every meter of space. That's insane, Zektar replied. The logical response is to preserve our species for the future. Humans don't think logically about threats to their pack, Dr. Velenesh reminded him. They think like persistent predators. The goal isn't survival. The goal is making sure the prey dies. The harvesters arrived exactly on schedule. Their ships were massive geometric constructs of dark metal and energy conduits. They moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism with 50,000 bodies. No communications were attempted. The machines simply began consuming everything in their path. The first battle lasted 6 hours. Human fleets met the harvester advance at the edge of coalition space. Military analysts expected the humans to be wiped out in minutes. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The humans fought like they were trying to lose. They rammed harvester ships with their own vessels. They flew directly into enemy weapon fire to get close enough for point-blank attacks. When their ships were disabled, the crews activated self-destruct devices that took nearby harvesters with them. Admiral Chun led from the front, her flagship charging directly into the center of the harvester formation. When her weapons ran out of ammunition, she used the ship itself as a projectile. When the ship was too damaged to fight, she transferred to a smaller vessel and continued the attack. "This is impossible," Admiral Kethmore whispered as he watched the battlefield. "They're actually winning exchanges against the harvesters." But that wasn't the strangest part. As the battle continued and human casualties mounted, the surviving humans became more effective, not less. They started using tactics that no sane commander would consider. They turned damaged ships into bombs. They used debris fields as cover for impossible attacks. They coordinated suicide runs with mathematical precision. The harvesters had been designed to fight logical opponents. Enemies who valued survival, who retreated when faced with superior odds, who made rational decisions based on calculated outcomes. Humans did none of those things. When a human ship was surrounded and outgunned, it didn't surrender. It kept fighting until every system failed and every crew member was dead. When human commanders faced impossible odds, they didn't look for escape routes. They looked for ways to take more enemies with them. The psychological effect on the harvesters was devastating. For 3 million years, they had conquered species that eventually broke under pressure. But humans never broke. They just got angrier. The final battle took place around Earth itself. The harvesters had pushed through the outer defenses, consuming worlds and fleets. Only a few thousand human ships remained. Any logical species would have surrendered. Humans don't do logic when their pack is threatened. Admiral Chun's final transmission was broadcast across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Chun to all harvester forces. You made a mistake. You came to our home. You hurt our friends. We are going to kill every single one of you." What followed was the most vicious battle in galactic history. Humans fought with weapons that should have destroyed them along with their enemies. They used their own planet's gravity well to slingshot damaged ships into harvester formations. They turned Earth's moon into a massive projectile. When the smoke cleared, something impossible had happened. The harvesters were gone. Not retreated, destroyed. 50,000 ships reduced to debris and radiation. The ancient scourge of the galaxy had been eliminated by a species that had only joined the galactic community 6 months earlier. Commander Zektar stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking at the wreckage around Earth. Less than 100 human ships had survived the battle. The planet itself was badly damaged. But the humans had done what no other species in galactic history had managed. They had hunted the harvesters to extinction. Admiral Chun's voice crackled over the communication system. She was speaking from a medical ship, her body broken, but her spirit undefeated. Commander Zektar, this is Admiral Chun. Harvester threat has been neutralized. Ready to resume normal coalition operations. Zektar stared at the debris field that had once been the most feared force in the galaxy. The humans spoke of resuming normal operations like they had just completed a routine patrol. Admiral, he said slowly, how many of your people survived? About 12,000 military personnel. Maybe 8 million civilians. We took heavy losses, but we got the job done. She spoke about losing 90% of her species, like it was an acceptable casualty rate for mission success. That was when Zektar finally understood the truth about humanity. They weren't just persistence predators. They were persistence predators who had evolved to hunt in groups. And once they identified something as prey, they would never stop coming. Not until either they or their target was completely dead. Dr. Velenash, Zektar called over the communication system. Update the human species classification. To what, Commander? Zektar watched Admiral Chun's ship limping through the wreckage of the Harvester fleet. Somewhere in that damaged vessel was a woman who had just saved the galaxy by refusing to let her enemies escape alive. Apex predator, he said quietly. And never, under any circumstances, should they be considered prey. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. When you threaten a human's pack, you're not starting a battle. You're signing your own death warrant.